Hey everyone! First off, the annual 24-hour of Le Mans race in 2025 is scheduled to take place next month on June 14 and 15 at the Circuit de la Sarthe in Le Mans, France. And I will be there in person, together with Pimax hosting a booth at the venue right in the middle of the action, letting visitors experience the Le Mans Ultimate in VR with the flagship Pimax headset, the Crystal Super. Make sure to check out the Pimax official website for more information coming up. I look forward to see you there. Now, up front, my trip to France. I've spent the past days testing Le Mans Ultimate in VR. It's a racing simulator developed by Studio 397 and Motorsport Games, the creators of my old favorite racing simulator R-Factor 2. Le Mans Ultimate is a popular and still a relatively new racing simulator experience with a rapidly growing player base. If you have missed it out, it's available on Steam in early access. This title has native VR support, which is outstanding, and more about that later. But at the same time, in my opinion, VR support in any simulator is expected, or rather required these days. I mean, is anyone still playing simulators using monitors? Either way, big thumbs up to the studio for caring about VR. To get the most out of this VR experience, I played it on my new favorite VR headset, the Pimax Crystal Super. This is Pimax's latest headset flagship with a staggering resolution of 3840 by 3840 pixels per eye, rendering more than 29 million pixels in total. It uses local dimming QLED panels for extreme brightness and great black levels. It uses inside-out tracking, it has Tobii eye tracking, supports DFR. With its unique aspheric glass lenses, it renders nearly 130 degrees of horizontal field of view and soon also 140 degrees with additional QLED optical engine. But you should know all this by now, and all in all, we are using the best of the best in terms of VR clarity and immersion, especially for VR simulator titles. Alright, to those of you knowing me since before, yes, I admit that unlike you, I'm not a huge racing or racing sim enthusiast. Personally, I am much more of a flight sim guy long before VR even existed. I do play the racing games or racing titles occasionally, all in VR of course. But yes, I am a sim racing noob. I'm still kicking my ancient G27 force feedback wheel just mounted to my desk using basically default settings in most simulators. Compared to you, I'm still don't know much about racing simulation in general. What I do know though is virtual reality. This is my home base, my passion, my full-time job and my biggest hobby for the past 8 years. So I do know how VR should feel like and look like when driving that car. That proper presence, that sense of speed and the total VR immersion and all its visual aspects. And Le Mans Ultimate is probably the best racing sim out there regarding that. The VR implementation and its navigation is flawless, and the game also supports native OpenXR rendering, a huge advantage as Pimax now has its own optimized OpenXR runtime. I won't go deep into how much Le Mans Ultimate has to offer in terms of game modes. It does include tons of it, like tracks all around the world, various hypercars, GTR and GTE class cars and much more. There are also many add-ons and DLCs available on Steam, including the Season Pass. I bet with the growing community we will see tons of additional content, add-ons and mods coming up. Either way, as a total racing noob, I'm mainly judging this book by its cover, or this simulator by its VR performance and visuals. What you get in terms of visuals in Le Mans Ultimate is probably the most realistic VR environment I've seen in a racing sim. It's beautiful, it feels fast, it's more like the real deal and less of a game, at least in VR. But there is one catch. You need to properly set it up first. Otherwise, you might end up kinda underwhelmed. Just like I did the first maybe half an hour or so, just jumping into a race with default settings without changing resolution or anything else. I mean, I'm running the Crystal Super here, the highest resolution VR headset available, with the highest clarity currently possible in VR. But at first, although the frame rate was stable at 90 frames per second, Le Mans Ultimate looked like a big pile of jagged edges everywhere. A smooth experience, but with strangely low resolution render, tons of jaggies and a rather blurry image overall. This is all caused by a too low resolution render in-game. You may not see it as obvious on a Quest 3 or HP Reverb for instance, but when pairing Le Mans Ultimate with an ultra high resolution headset like the Super, you need to do a few things that will make a world of a difference, such as increase the render resolution to remove jagged edges, change some settings that causes the image to look blurry despite high res, find a good balance between image quality and performance, lastly, upgrade your GPU. Okay, this step 4 is maybe not a requirement, but yes, to fully enjoy this simulator with a 4K by 4K resolution headset such as the Crystal Super or the upcoming Pimax Dream Air, you will definitely need something close to an Nvidia RTX 4080 Super or preferably better. My gaming rig houses an RTX 4090. Even if it's far from 5090 performance, it's still a very high-end GPU or the second best GPU available today. Ideally, to make the sim look amazingly sharp and crisp, you would just crank up the render resolution to max in Pimax Play, remove all anti-aliasing and that's it. But it's not that simple. So let me quickly guide you through what I found to be the best settings for my RTX 4090. If you have further suggestions or even better tweaks, please let me know in the comments. First off, with the Pimax headset, you should always run Le Mans Ultimate using the built-in Pimax OpenXR runtime and not with SteamVR. Enable the Pimax OpenXR as default render inside of Pimax Play, and when starting the game from Steam, it will automatically launch in VR without SteamVR even being used. This will slightly help you with the performance and stability also. As I said earlier, I was pretty underwhelmed by the image quality from start, testing Pimax Play render quality both on medium and high settings, or 0.75 and 1.0. Even if I cranked up the resolution to ridiculous levels like 1.2, I saw tons of jagged edges. The game just doesn't look like it's being rendered at full resolution, no matter what you set it to. Also, the more you increase the resolution, the worse performance you get. I honestly thought this simulator deserved better visuals at full frame rate, especially with a 4090 graphic card. So I started my journey to dig deep into all possible options. First, in the in-game settings, I noticed that most options except for MSAA, shadows and post effects didn't noticeably harm performance that much. So I kept most of the other graphical settings at high or even ultra. As for resolution, you could achieve pretty okay visuals by just enabling MSAA anti-aliasing and max it out at 8x. And this will most likely get you close to full frame rate with a 5090 maybe, but the 4090 just can't handle it. Not even when running at 72Hz instead of 90Hz, I could keep the frame rate maxed out at 72. Lowering MSAA to 4x did bring me back to almost stable 90 frames per second, but the jagged edges got considerably worse. The problem is that even with maxed out in-game anti-aliasing at 8, you still see tons of jagged edges, even at these crazy high resolutions. And forget about enabling FXAA anti-aliasing, it just blurs the image, and with an ultra high resolution headset such as Crystal Super, it's super apparent, or more apparent than ever. Now, I wanted to get rid of the jagged edges seen even at high resolutions and bring out the clarity without losing frame rate. I did fiddle around for a couple of hours and eventually I found some workarounds that highly improves these aspects. Some settings also improve the performance. While having MSAA anti-aliasing set to 4 in-game settings to keep the frame rate maxed out, now this was my solution. The good old Nvidia control panel has its own 3D settings for each individual game you installed. And here is where the magic happens. Obviously it works with this VR title. It eliminates most of the jagged edges without killing the sharpness. Now you enter Manage 3D settings, go to individual program settings and find the Le Mans Ultimate in the list. By overriding anti-aliasing application settings, setting both to 8 including transparency and anti-aliasing at 8 super sample, additionally change all of the other options that are highlighted in bold here according to my settings. Don't forget to click apply and then restart Le Mans Ultimate. All of a sudden, With in-game MSAA at 4, the visuals looks much better than running in-game MSAA at 8 before, and the frame rate is mostly maxed out at 90 frames per second, even in full rays. To further improve the frame rate and add some additional clarity to the image, you can install OpenXR Toolkit, and in the options you see in VR View, change the settings as follows. Enable fixed foveated rendering and adjust the preset accordingly. This gives me between 7 to 10 extra frames per second without affecting the image quality at all. The same thing can technically be achieved by running DFR or dynamic foveated rendering using the built-in Pimax Play feature with the integrated eye tracking with Super instead of the OpenXR Toolkit. But at least on my end, it's currently not working properly in this VR title. The right eye view gets pixelated even with the latest Nvidia drivers, which hopefully gets fixed soon. If you have found a fix already, please let me know. Lastly, enable CAS or cast sharpening and set it to around 30% or at least not higher than 50 with the Pimax Crystal Super. More than 50 is kinda overkill. Whatever value you set it to, it will dramatically improve the clarity rendered in Le Mans Ultimate. I would say it makes the image to pop even more. It does have a slight impact on the frame rate, so have that in mind. Oh, and don't forget to always restart the VR session or the game after changing settings in OpenXR Toolkit. Now back to Pimax Play, keep the render quality at normal or 0.75. If you feel like your GPU have some extra performance delivering beyond 90 frames per second even in full races, try increasing the render quality to maybe 0.8 or even higher. If you have an RTX 5090, you can probably do render quality at 1.0 even. With my 4090, I keep the render quality at 0.8, slightly above normal mode. So by just applying these additional tweaks, I'm now running Le Mans Ultimate with exceptional clarity and full frame rate. This is how Le Mans Ultimate is meant to be played, I think. It looks stunning, it feels spot on, and that VR immersion is better than probably with any other racing simulator I have tried at least until now. Again, big thumbs up to Studio 397 and Motorsport Games for implementing such a great VR support. Now, please fix the anti-aliasing issues in VR. Preferably also add the DLSS support in VR, and you will for sure hit the home run with this one. So, I hope this video was somewhat helpful to you out there. If you have any questions, recommendations, or useful tweaks surrounding Le Mans Ultimate, please let us know in the comments or on our social media platforms. Lastly, I hope to see you at Le Mans 2025 event race in France inside the Pimax booth a few weeks from now. Until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.